My name is Amanda El-Dweek, and if you haven't heard of me, it's okay because I'm not famous. My last name is unusual, in case you thought I wasn't aware of that, I am. It's actually an Egyptian last name. It's not Spanish for the Dweek. So little origin about that. When my husband Dan and I were first married, we worked together, and for 2 years I got to hear him on the phone say, "Sure, I can spell my last name. E as in elephant, L as in lady, hyphen, D as in dog, W as in woman, etc., etc." So I went from being a Becker to being an El-Dweek, and I have to spell my name all the time. I actually live in Watford City. It is across the state from here. But I am from here. I was born here. I was raised here. I was a Hensel kid that went to Cavalier. Represent. Yeah, that's right. If that doesn't help you, I'm Scott and Jody's kid. That was my dad. This is the only place anywhere in the world where I know what direction I'm going. This is Canada. And that's Hallock. And that's Grand Forks. And that's Langdon. And those are my cardinal directions. One time my mom sent me out here when my dad works in that shop over there by the trees, and he was like, "Well, I'm on the west side and to the door's on the south," and I was like, I don't know what that is. So I had to think, like, okay, the park is to Langdon. Okay, yeah. And he did get his lunch that day, so everything worked out okay. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful with my notes. I do have some memory issues. I'm a terrible eyewitness, so if a crime happens, that is not good. I have other issues too. Kyle will be passing out my medical records, so you can peruse those at your leisure. As you can see, I'm kind of dressed like an administrative assistant this evening, or this afternoon rather. But it goes from day to night because if I take the scarf off, I look like I'm wait staff for a caterer. So I was actually an admin assistant, 10 years ago with my husband at the Indigent Defense Office. And I used to read that as indignant defense. It's not entirely inaccurate. Why is everybody here so angry? Indignant defense. The indigent defense, of course, is the fancy name for public defender. We actually had a client send us a letter, and it said Public Avenger's Office on it. So that was the coolest thing that ever happened there. I hung it up. It was a missed opportunity because I did not get T-shirts made. I should have. Well, I actually am for a living. I have 2 jobs. I work at the Catholic Church in town, but I've been a cartoonist longer. I'm syndicated by the same people that you'd recognize Calvin and Hobbes and Garfield and stuff like that. They are the same people. Those are newspaper comics, and I'm on the line. I'm a webcomic artist. But don't worry, my stuff is not as good as there. It's not difficult. It's just time-consuming thinking of jokes. Like, please see the last 2 months trying to think of these jokes. But I love it. But I have to be careful because you can really go down a rabbit hole. So I'll look something up, okay, I want to make a joke about Emeril Lagasse. Well, I have to look up how do you spell Emeril Lagasse because I don't want people coming for me in the comments, right? And then it's like, well, I'm going to watch Emeril Lagasse, videos, and then I'm watching cake decorating videos, and then I'm watching people like washing rugs, and it just kind of goes from there. So you have to be really careful, or else your day can get away from you. But like I said, I am married to my husband Dan for 11-ish years, I think 11 and a half years. We got married in October on purpose. October is cooler. We are both heavier people, so summer weddings are taxing. I know everything in summer is pretty and it's blooming and everything, but the non-sweaty months, there's some beauty in those too. Okay? That's right. So If you had a summer wedding, your family and friends that are overweight still hate you. Okay. It's true. Just for next time you get together, just... A friend of Dan's actually got married in late July in Minnesota, and it was in a church with no air conditioning. I really regret getting them that silver bowl. I should have sent him my dry cleaning bill. I sweat through my dress shields. We stood outside the reception hall. So the church had no air conditioning. We get to the reception hall, and they won't let us in. They have a canopy with some hors d'oeuvres and stuff, and I was really incensed that there wasn't like a snow cone vendor. It was so hot. The hors d'oeuvres, they could have just had ice cubes and cut up fudgesicles. That would have been great. We did gather for a group photo outside the church, so they wanted everybody out there, and the photographer, stood up high and took our picture, and people are, he's moving people around, and it's a Catholic church, so we have the priest is out there in his vestments, and that's like 4 layers of clothing, actually, if you're Catholic, And the priest goes, "Take the damn picture already." It is too hot outside if your priest starts swearing. It's too hot. But Dan and I actually met online back in 2004. We were kind of pioneers of online dating. Do people do that anymore? Do people date online? Is that the thing? Yeah? Okay. All right. Well, that's nice. I've been out of the game a while, so I don't know. But he, to find, not me specifically, but he was searching for people in his geographic area. And I know it sounds creepy, and it was, but only a lot. I was never gonna have a meet cute though. I wasn't gonna reach for a cantaloupe at the same time somebody else was reaching for a cantaloupe in the grocery store, and that's mostly because I don't like fruit. But I was gonna be the one pressed up against the donut case, and he would say, "Well, I noticed you were eyeing that cruller." Yes, I was, big boy. Yes, I was. I'm going to take that cruller home and 5 of his little friends and show them a good time. And it's creepy stuff like that is why I didn't get asked out. You have to find somebody that doesn't scare easily. Anyway, in Dan's case, the fact that I was 28 years old at the time, lived in my parents' basement with my 2 cats, and my night job at the hospital, it didn't even faze him. Didn't even care, which made me wonder, kind of like, well, what's wrong with this guy? Like maybe I should be worried. But I remembered he got hit by a car when he was on his moped in college and got his bell rung, and from that he has permanent tinnitus and a weird taste in women. But thank goodness he came along, because it wasn't looking good for old Amanda before I met him. I dated a guy once who I went to a bonfire at his house, and he howled at the moon, and he was trying to talk to the wolves, coyotes, I don't know what he was doing. And after that guy, I dated a guy with no car and no furniture. So when I was at his house, I was on the floor, sitting on the floor, and that was a very short one. But that was my red flag, not having furniture. Dan and I don't have any children. We're actually unable to have children, but don't be sad, because we can sleep in on the weekends. And we don't find any dry, uncapped markers laying around the house. That's kind of a big thing for me. I don't know if that's that's how I think of parents, is like, oh, the kids are always, uncapping markers, and there's dry pens and dry. I don't know if that's a thing. Is that a thing, parents? You can talk to me after the show if you want, but it might be good that we don't have kids. Only name we agree on is a boy's name, which is Francis, which I think is a great name. But we didn't agree on the name I had always wanted, which was Motorhead. And that's only if it was a girl. Can you even imagine that? Like Saint Motorhead, or President Motorhead, Dr. Motorhead. We get asked a lot why we don't have kids, or if we have kids. And then we were in this antique store once in Bismarck, and we're making small talk while checking out. This gal was really outgoing and nice, and I must have a face that looks like people just feel good about asking personal questions. Like this girl surely will, tell us everything. Does my face look like that? Yeah, I knew it. But I told her we don't have any kids, and she asked, I thought that would be the end of it, like, oh, do you have kids? No, okay, well, moving right along. But she asked me, how come? And I was like, well, I don't know, the whole marker thing, kind of scares me. I buy art markers, they're expensive. The kid's gonna bankrupt me. So I told her we were just unable to have children, and which is never good enough for people, because then they want to ask, she asked me if we doctored for that. And I said, well, do I not know my own body here? Why would you ask me that? But I didn't, should I have shut the questioning down? Yes. Did I? No. But sometimes I'm so shell-shocked by what people say that it just, you just kind of sitting there for a couple seconds and you just instinctively answer the question. But I told Dan, I said, we've been trying for years. Maybe we just needed to visit with the gal at the antique store this whole time. I don't know. Maybe she could have helped us out. She asked if we had ever heard of adoption. If only somebody would have pointed that out sooner, we could have been living like the Von Trapp family, minus the Nazis. High on a hill was a lonely goat herd. Lay-yodelay, yodelay, hee-hoo. And me and Dan would be barreling down the road with our 10 kids in our cargo van, or as we would call it, our Catholic limousine. So I kind of messed with her a little bit, and I said, yeah, okay, so adoption, is that like when you have somebody with a baby and you have us with our bag of cash, and you meet in like an unlit park, and we each get out of the car, and there's this imaginary middle line between the two of us, and we set down our cash, and they bring the baby and set it down on the line, and then each of us grabs the thing that we came there for. So that's what that is, right? And that really shut it down for me. I just wanted a costume jewelry brooch from that place. I ended up telling a complete stranger about my infertility, so. But wouldn't online shopping for a baby be a gas, though? Like, that's how we get all the other stuff that we don't have. Like toilet paper, pinball machines, babies. You get everything online. Probably not a great idea. What if we needed to return it? But we had already used it a little. Online customer support would be like, ma'am, you've clearly used this baby. It's been held and passed around by your whole family. Yes, but it cried afterwards, and we specified no crybabies in the drop-down box. Ma'am, all babies cry. Okay, but it also got into my art supplies and uncapped all my markers. Thank you very much.